Hi everyone, welcome to our event, Getting Involved in Research. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We're really excited to start off Research Week. So today we have our event hosted by the Coyote Scholars Club. My name is Emily Ann Del Rosario. I'm the Vice President. Guadalupe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Emily. My name is Guadalupe Romero. I'm a second year, and I am part of the Coyote Scholars Club.
All right, great, thank you. So today we have our great panel. Our student panel is going to be answering some frequently asked questions about getting involved in research. If anyone of our attendees have any questions or would like our panelists to answer any specific questions, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat feature or in the Q&A feature at any point, and we'll get to those at the end, all right? So let's get into introducing our student panel. Roberta, if you want to start, and then anyone else can jump in.
Sure. Hello and good morning. My name is Roberta Salgado. I am a third-year graduate student at CSUSB. I am in the Master's of Science in IO Psychology, and that's my major. And my area of research is examining the work-life interface, and I'm also part of the work-family life research team that's facilitated by Dr. Mark Agers.
I can introduce myself. My name is Aaron Keniston. I'm a first-year graduate student at CSUSB. I'm working in Dr. Utenair's lab at Loma Linda University through the CERN program. And thank you guys for having me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Annabelle, and I'm a fourth-year undergraduate. I'm a dual major in psychology and human development, and I am passionate about conducting research in child development and behaviors, and also in parenting, and also in school psychology. So I have kind of a mixed interest, but all of them relate to helping children and benefiting families.
Hi, I'm Angela Becerra. I'm currently an undergraduate in kinesiology, the exercise science concentration, and my research primarily focused on self-efficacy and physical activity.
And then Xavier, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Xavier Resendez. I'm a third-year student here, undergraduate, and my major is history. And I've been involved in research with Dr. Keating, Civil War widows, and looking into their pensions. And I'm also conducting my own research, race and racism in the 19th century U.S. Southwest that takes a look at laws.
Great, thank you all for introducing yourselves. So I think we can just jump right into it. So our first question that we have for all of our panelists is what made you get involved in research, or why did you want to do research in your field? So whoever wants to step in first, go on.
I'll get a head start. So during my undergraduate, when I went in for my undergraduate here at CSUSB, I wanted to perform research in my field because I was really interested in going to graduate school at the time. And to be an eligible applicant and candidate, you have to have some background research, especially with the DREAM graduate program, which I'm currently in now, that I wanted to get into. So I needed to gain some sort of research experience. So I eventually applied for and then eventually joined the Work Family Life research team after meeting with Dr. Agers, who, by the way, is also who was my honors thesis advisor. I was also part of the psychology honors program and is currently my master's thesis advisor. And during that time, that's when I started during my second year in college.
I became involved in research during my second year as an undergraduate. And at that time, I've always known that I wanted to go into a graduate program or a PhD program. When I first started CSUSB, I had a goal that I wanted to graduate in 3 years instead of 4. But then I realized I was going to graduate with a bachelor's and I'm still going to be getting paid the minimum wage. And I really didn't want that for myself. So after talking to counselors and advisors, they recommended that I get involved in research so I can have a better and secure outlook when I graduate with my bachelor's. when I first started, I really didn't know what type of research I wanted to do or what I really wanted to study. So it was kind of confusing at that time. I knew I wanted to work with children because of the classes I've taken that involve children and families. So I really wanted to do that. Then I met with a few professors, and they got me into like really pinpointing my interests.
I can go next. So I transferred to CSUSB from RCC, and I didn't have the strongest academic background at RCC. My grades weren't that good. I just wasn't focused. And so I felt like, transferring to CSUSB was my last chance to turn it around. And so going through all of my undergraduate, going through like Bio 200 series, organic chemistry, I started to get good grades. And so I knew that I had to do whatever I could to set myself apart. Being that I was a pre-dent, I needed to, I needed to try to prove myself. And so I hit up my organic chemistry professor, Dr. Malari, and from there, he was like, hold up, let's just make sure you're good through the rest of, this quarter and you're still liking organic chemistry. And then we'll talk again about doing research. And so I ended up doing research for Dr. Malari, synthesizing competitive inhibitors for metalloprotease that is expressed by the malarial parasite. And it just sparked so much. I initially thought that research was just go on the computer and Google and read, and it's so far from that. That is a small portion of it. And so getting into research was super beneficial. It gave me a whole nother side of like analytical thinking. And so it just sparked my interest from there.
So a while back, I performed research in a required course for my major, which was exercise physiology. And we had a course-based undergraduate research experience, which is known as Secure. And therefore, I was required to complete a research project. And I felt like I was pretty eager and excited to be able to pick my own topic concerning physical activity and self-efficacy. And throughout like the whole process, I genuinely felt like as if I was contributing and learning about the explanation on how individuals can motivate themselves to perform physical activity in their daily lives. And that was just all based on my hypothesis. So imagine if I could do more and like pursue it further. Be a pretty cool experience.
I wanted to get into research because I knew, as far as my long-term goals, that I did want to become a professor. And I also knew that talking to my department chair of the history department would give me more of a realistic idea on how and what this this job entails, and how to prep for it, and research was one of the things. And I ended up by enjoying research a lot, as it gave me more of a hands-on approach, and it had a lot to do with my personal values as well, the type of research that I was engaging in, such as with the Civil War widows, giving a voice to someone who was not able to speak at the time.
Okay, thank you everyone for those really great responses. So the second question we have is, how did you get involved in research? So what were some of the steps you took to finding like that interest? And yeah, whoever wants to start.
I'll get started. So I heard this advice from Dr. Kelly Campbell, who facilitates the psychology honors program, was to first look into the IO psychology faculty, because that was my major, look into their backgrounds, look into their research under the CSUSB Department of Psychology website, and to see and look into those that I seemed interested in, and that seemed interesting to me. So once I narrowed it down, looked at all the faculty's names and their research interests, because it's under their bio if they include it. Once I narrowed it down, I reached out to those faculty that via email expressing my interest to be part of their, either their lab if they had a lab, or to be their mentee. And once I got a call back from them, or a reply back saying that they would like to meet with me and they can discuss more about their lab and such, I was able to say yes. So I met with two professors here at CSUSB. It was Dr. Ishmael Diaz and Dr. Mark Yeagers. And we had a discussion, asked him about the lab, what were his research interests, how did he facilitate the lab, what were the previous projects or current projects that we're working on. And I did ask the same questions with Dr. Mark Yeagers. And then once I narrowed it down and thought about it, I reached out to Dr. Yeagers saying I was interested in being part of his lab. And of course, the rest is history. I emailed him and he was saying, you know what, that's great. So I've been part of Dr. Yeagers' lab for 3 years now, over 3 years now, and yeah, the rest is history.
I got a push from my advisor that helped me look into the different faculty members on the psychology page. From there, I was able to know how to contact them because they had the bio and their contact information there as well. Like I said before, I knew that I wanted to work with children and families, and I knew that that was something that I was really passionate about. So I looked for professors that focused on those two fields. I knew that I wanted to get into a graduate program and a PhD program, so I knew that research was really going to benefit me a lot. And I was really interested in working with a professor that focused on the same area that I was focused on. If you're looking for like a research lab, I would recommend looking at the psychology faculty page. If you're a psychology major or a child development major, looking at that psychology page. And if you don't have an interest right now, think of your favorite professor or your class, and maybe think why that's your favorite class and if you would enjoy doing research with that professor.
Yeah, kind of actually piggybacking off of that. I would say the best thing to do is just talk to professors and find a professor that you have a good relationship with. And that's kind of what I did is going into organic chemistry. It just sounded intimidating, and so I really tried to go as hard as I could to get good grades in the class, and it worked. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm good at this, even though like my end goal is to be a dentist. If I can do something interesting that I like along the way, then hooray, And so I asked him, and he kind of, he turned me away at first, not turned me away, but just said, hold on, like, let's make sure that you still like organic chemistry as time goes on. And I did. And so I didn't take no for an answer. And I went back to him and I said, I'm still interested in this. Like, what do I got to do to rock and roll? And so then, eventually he took me on, and yeah, I'd say my biggest advice is just talk to people, and don't take no for an answer.
So after taking a look at my long-term goal and sitting down with the department chair, that's when I started to look at the faculty list at my department and tried to see which professors, uh, the areas that they study kind of piqued my interest. And eventually I landed on my mentor, Dr. Keating. I had just went into his office and kind of asked the type of field that he studied and the steps that he went through. And then thankfully he said that he had research going on in the coming summer. So I got lucky there, and I was able to land him as a mentor there.
Well, I personally was able to reach out to my professor because, again, I had a required project for that class, Dr. Dunn. So she kind of helped me with any assistance that we needed. And there was many people in the class that, never done research before. They never taken statistics. So she kind of just guided us through that. However, If someone wanted to conduct research outside of a class setting, the CSUSB Alumni Relations has actually been promoting something called the Coyote Network. There's plenty of alumni that are willing to share and help and give advice. So I kind of suggest that as a starting point if you're kind of like shy and don't want to, talk to your professors right away. But, whenever faculty does mention their area of research, consider asking if they need help, because if your interests align, that might be something you want to do.
Great, thank you all for those amazing answers. So in the beginning, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're really excited that Shane was able to join us today. Shane, if you want to give everyone a brief introduction of your major, your year, and the research you're part of.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry about that technical issue. It was a little difficult on my side. Yeah, so my name is Shane Burrell. I'm a researcher in communication studies. I research immersive technologies and innovation, particularly in human and machine interaction. I am a second-year master's student right now, currently going to graduate in spring. So yes, yay. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Shane. All right, so let's move on to the next question for all of our panelists. Do you have any advice for any students who want to start getting involved in research? This could be how you reached out to mentors, or whether it be finding your interest or anything of that sort. All right, whoever wants to start may go.
I'll start. So I guess you could, if based on everybody's responses, it's kind of a common theme that's going around is just, again, research the faculty that are in your department, and specifically in the sub-department, whether it's school psychology, clinical psychology, IO psychology, and with the faculty that you are interested in looking into, look in their research interests. If they list them on their bio, if they don't, they have references of conference presentations that they presented in and their articles that they published. So look into those as well. And email them saying that you're interested in being part of their team, their lab, or being their mentee. And of course, meet with them now. With the current circumstances, you can meet with them via Zoom, ask them if they have time during the week or the next, or whichever day is best for them, meet with them via Zoom to have a further discussion on their research lab and their research interests, and maybe tell them what your interests are. And of course, after the discussion goes, and if there's a possibility, the worst they can say is what Erin said, the worst they can say is no. So just and that's my advice, just go for it, talk with them, and see where it goes.
I kind of want to add to that. I did meet with a few professors when I first started, and it really took me a while to find like the right one, which is my mentor now. And I've been with her since 2018. It's really important that you find a mentor that you connect with and you build a relationship on, because that's the mentor that's going to be used to write your letter of recommendation. So I would recommend like talking to other like faculty members and see like where your interests lie, and if you could really like dedicate that time with your research mentor. My main advice for students, if you guys want to get involved in research, is to start early, like start like now, especially if you're a sophomore or junior, and start thinking about what your interests are and reach out to the faculty. I would recommend starting early, and I'm saying this because I was in the honors program and I had a lot of friends in the honors program that wanted to go into a graduate school or PhD program, and they started their honors program in September, and applications for these programs are due in December. And most of these programs require at least a year of experience. And so they didn't get that experience, and some of them weren't able to get into a program. So I would recommend starting early, as soon as you can.
Yeah, that's a good one. To get your foot in the door as soon as possible, because there's always a possibility that you change labs. There's a possibility that you go into a lab and you end up hating it. And then you're like, okay, well, this isn't for me. And so you go explore other options. Another big one is just show initiative. If you know that you're going into, someone's lab, or you're interested in someone's lab, read up on their research and find questions to ask them. Hey, what does this mean right here in this section? And they're going to be more than willing to talk about their research, because a lot of people are pretty proud of their research. Another one would just be talk to your peers, there's only so many faculty members, and typically in a lab, one PI will look over a group of students. And so the probability of you running in and talking to someone who's doing research is higher than just going to talking to a faculty member. Maybe you don't connect with them, but if you're talking to your peers and you just ask them, I would just ask everyone, like, hey, who do you do research for? Or do you do research? And if you do, who do you do research for? And then if a very casual conversation can turn into something that's like, okay, sparking an interest, and then you go and explore that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Aaron. Talk to your peers, right? That's how I found my faculty mentor and a lot of other mentors, right? Talk to the students that are in your cohort if you're a master's student. If not, talk to some of the other students who are also interested in research, right? I believe Annabelle said, like, you have to have that year, right? So if you're even thinking about it, like, start prepping on it, and then talk to them and see, like, what kind of traits do these faculty members have, right? Sometimes it's not just about our research. I feel like there might be like kind of a strong psychological background here, but in communication studies, it's kind of how like you vibe with someone, right? Like how you feel, how do you get along with them, right? If someone is very direct and that's not the way that you learn, and if you're writing a paper and they're like, hey, this paper's shit, and like that's not how you learn, then you're not going to take away research skills and knowledge from them if you feel like they're bringing you down, right? Like you need to be able to have like this relationship with them as well. So I would say talk to peers and figure out like who does what, how they do it, how they react, those types of things. So that's also very, very like very important in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say as far as finding your interests go, um, a lot of people had said, just communicate with your professors and take a look into the research that they've done, because as it said before, they're very proud of their research, and taking a look into the steps that got there can give you a good picture, and you may find a topic that they thought about exploring that you would like to pursue, and that's yeah.
Since Xavier also touched on topics, I think that's a really cool thing about the route that I took was that I was able to choose my own research topic, and that topic would still be relevant to my major, which is kinesiology. And I think it's super helpful to ask yourself questions about topics that you're really interested about, or even some topic that you want to inform others about, because I feel like it's easier to write research on what you enjoy rather than something that you think sounds good on paper or might not be as interesting as you think it is.
Okay, thank you guys. Those are really great responses. So the next question we have is, how has research benefit you personally? So whoever's ready.
I could probably go on and on about this one, but research has benefited me in just giving me resilience, giving me strength. I would say a lot of research that I've experienced deals with a lot of failure. And so, the lows are really low and the highs are really high. And so there are a lot of lows, but when something goes right, then all of that hard work it feels like it's worth something. It feels like you're doing something right. And so, dealing with all those failures, you just learn to be emotionally strong through all of that. And I think that ties into classes as well, because sometimes, you might not get the highest grade in the class and you might, doubt yourself for it, but that's just a learning experience. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you might have to do something different. And so I think that, yeah, just, dealing with failure is a main one. I would also say that, growing up through, grade school and community college and then university, a lot of the classes is, hey, here's the information and I want you to memorize it, know it like the back of your hand, and regurgitate it to me on the test. And so there's different levels of thinking. There's like memorizing the knowledge, or there's just like knowing the knowledge, there's memorizing the knowledge, and then there's like analytically applying the knowledge. And so I would say that that's like the deepest level of knowing the material. And so, that's where the research comes in, is it allows you to kind of look at things through a different lens and just kind of gain, analytical skills to troubleshoot, problem solve, and that carries over into classes, and it definitely helped me with my grades for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Experience is like the very best teacher that you can have. And I mean, researching, you don't just you gain analytical knowledge and the ability to apply this, and you also gain as well the ability to for communication skills as well when it comes to communicating with your peers, or communicating with other professors who may also be interested in your field at different research conferences. And you can gain a lot of insight as well just by networking with other professors and chatting about your research. And you gain a lot of communication and professional skills that you may have to apply later on in the workforce.
So for me, research has really led me to be more confident when it came to doing my own research, along with giving me many opportunities to travel to conferences to present my own research. For instance, I presented at the 31st APS, Association of Psychological Science annual convention when it happened in Washington, D.C. And I also presented research that I did with the Work, Family, and Life research team at the SIOP, Society of IO Psychology conference in Chicago, Illinois, back in 2018. And so it allowed me to have those opportunities to travel and to experience research conferences and to network and have that experience of like, hey, I presented my own research. And you can add that research experience or presenting at a conference in your resume or your CV if you want to go into the academia route. In addition, these past experiences have allowed me to the opportunity to apply and receive funds. One of the best tips that I've ever heard from Dr. Kelly Campbell in the honors program is funding. What they look at when you go into either a master's program or a doctoral program or want to go into more academia, a field is funding. If they see that you get funding for your research, then that's like the top thing that they're looking for when you apply for those types of opportunities. So I receive funds to help further my research, whether it's the my honors thesis when I was an undergrad, or currently my master's thesis right now, and it really helped further my academic journey. Such as just recently this past year, I received the CSUSB Graduate Equity Fellowship, and that really was an awesome honor to be honored with that opportunity to further my academic journey and to further achieve my goal to receive my master's degree. I also received the ASI research and travel grants to attend those conferences. So and those types of grants are really useful to use. I know they probably don't offer those now because of course pandemic, but back then it was really cool to be able to be refunded or reimbursed with the funds or the money that you use during the conference, because of course this should be experience that should be offered to all students. So take advantage of that once everything calms down. And last but not least, I recently received the CSUSB SSI Graduate Student Culminating Project Grant to fund my current master's thesis. And that was, I believe, like $2,000. So that really, really helped with me collecting data and to further my master's thesis, which is pretty close. I'm working on the discussion. So if anybody knows about psychology thesis, it's pretty close. So that really helped me. And last but not least, I forgot to mention, outside of the university, outside of CSUSB, I was able to apply my research experience to a nonprofit that I'm part of, our soon-to-be nonprofit called Latinos in IO Psychology. Latinos in IO Psychology's mission is to foster a psychologically safe and inclusive community that to empower Latinos within the field of industrial and organizational psychology through mentorship, collaboration, networking, resources that I help with researching for, all while preserving and embracing the Latino culture. So it really has allowed me to not only go to graduate school, but to go to conferences, to get grants, and to be part of a nonprofit to help further the field of IO psychology.
Yeah, those are all really, really good points, Roberta. Thank you. Definitely funding is super huge for sure. When you're thinking about future in academia. I also have gotten tons of grants and all that stuff, and it's helped me get into my PhD program at the University of Oregon in gaming studies. But also too, like, keep in mind, like, research is about answering questions, right? That's why we do it, right? Because we're naturally curious people, right? We all have like this particular interest in like answering these questions within our fields, right? That we just find to be like phenomena, right? That's the point of a research, is to like control and predict particular questions that happen in either in social science and psychology, kinesiology, history, wherever it is, right? But I mean, the advice that I would give would be that if you're curious about something and you legitimately want the answer that you can find right outside of Google, you should put all the effort that you can into answering that question and figuring out how that question works, right? Understanding those mechanisms of how that particular phenomenon might have an impact on either you or your community, and how you can make that like utilizable, right, for everyone, right? Because that's the point of research, is that we answer these questions that we have so that we can give back to our community and serve the greater good, I guess. So if you're interested in anything like that, in answering questions that you might come across, like, why the hell does that even happen? Then you might be a researcher for sure. So
I kind of feel like the entire process of doing research has brought like different aspects of evidence-based decisions and even just research to my attention. Like while at CSUSB, I've read so many research articles, went through so many. Again, it was mainly related to my major, but I feel like as if it's given me like some perspective on what it actually means to do research. And I learned to like assess my own variables. And we know like back from elementary, even to now, we still talk about like the scientific method, you know, making your hypothesis, finding your variables. And I feel like even though we're taught that from such a young age, like I feel like now I see how beneficial it is and like how I can use it in like my discipline and like out of my practice. So that was something huge that I kind of realized a little late in college, but it's fine.
I wanted to go back to the last question that we had. So if you're interested in research and want to get that experience, I would recommend joining the honors program, the psychology honors program, or if you're in another department, I'm sure they have an honors program. That's a full year of research experience that you can get, and you can add it to your CV. Another research opportunity is the NIH RISE program, and this is a 2-year commitment. I decided to stay those 2 years. I was going to graduate in 3 years, and it was 4, and now it's 5. So I'm going to stay here till they kick me out. So I'm going to stay another year, and they pay you for conducting research with your mentor. And because of these programs, you get a better like insight of research, and you get to do something that you're passionate about. And like the other peers said here, research has really helped me. It really wasn't what I expected, what I wanted. what I wanted to do at first, but now it's something that I want as a career. I really like that feeling of accomplishment and that goal that you're working for something that not only benefits you, but also benefits society. And I know that that's going to benefit children and also families. And that's something that I really love.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for all of that great advice and for sharing all of those resources. That could definitely help students who are interested in getting involved. All right, so our next question, all of our panelists are very great. They've been very involved in so many different research projects. So our next question is, how do all of you balance research, your studies, and your personal life? Where do you find that work-life balance?
Work-life balance, and that's part of my interest, that goal that everybody wants is to balance work and life. So during my undergraduate career, the way I handled and managed my research in my studies was the little ASI calendar that you all used to get when we go into the quad. They offer those little calendars. That's what I would use. And then when I was accepted and went into my graduate program, I'm currently using a passion planner. You can't really see, but I use a weekly and a daily passion planner to balance my work and research studies. I was and my research and academic responsibilities. So I was introduced to the passion planner not a couple of years ago, but during my time, July 2018, summer 2018, at the beginning of my graduate career, I was given one by my former coworker that gave it to me as a congratulations on graduating college and also getting into graduate school gift. And so I've been using it and has really helped me keep myself organized. I don't think I would have survived my first year of graduate school if I didn't have these. And on top of these planners, I also use a Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar, just to keep everything, my schedule on track and everything organized in digital format.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing, right? Oh, I'm sorry, she's still talking. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Anyways, yeah, organization is huge. I work for the Mellon Mays undergraduate fellowship program, and which is great if you guys want to apply. I don't know if the deadline is already passed, but it's great because we do a lot of research work. I definitely follow up with everyone I work with there for research, but I always make sure that I tell my fellows that you need to have one day for yourself. And it doesn't matter what day you have for yourself. It could be a Saturday, it could be a Sunday, Thursday, Monday, whenever. But on that day, you need to do something that is fulfilling for you, right? Because yes, we have work, yes, we have research, we have homework, we got to do papers, we write all this stuff, right? We do what we're set to do in college, right, to succeed. But we also need to realize that we need to take time for ourselves, right? And that time for ourselves, it could be that we spend like 3 hours at Target, or we go on a hike, or we watch like baseball, or whatever, like spend time with family. These particular things not only like regenerate like your sense of relaxation, but it also regenerates like your soul, right? And at the end of the day, like we're putting all of ourselves into our work, whether it's like going to our 9 to 5 or whether it's our research. But we also need to know that like we need to take a step back and be able to relax, rejuvenate ourselves, right? Get our soul back together and not have like that day where like we're just stressed out about a paper, or we're like, we need to do all this analysis for our data, but we need to just like have that one day where we can just sit back, relax, and just chill.
Yeah, I would, piggybacking off what Shane said, balance is like the hardest thing to do, but it's so important. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I take Saturdays for myself, and you need to realize that you're in this and it's a marathon, not a race. And so, yeah, and you're in this for the long haul. And so you don't want to get burnt out. And take whatever it is on your Saturday off or whatever day it is, and just do not think about anything about research. But the days that you do research, go as hard as possible, so that when your day is off, it's fulfilling. You know, I heard this saying a while ago that there's 3 8-hour shifts in a day, and during the week you should work 2 of them. And so that kind of resonated with me. And so, yeah, I go, all out during the week, but I definitely make sure that I have that full day off to myself. I like working on classic cars. And so I'm building a Volkswagen right now. And that's like my outlet, that's where I can just turn everything off and just focus on something completely different that has nothing to do with studying ovarian cancer. And so the other thing is, yeah, I can't stress how important it is to have a planner. You need to have a planner, whether it be Google Calendars or something that's handwritten, and share this with your mentor and make sure that you're doing, you're on the right track and you are scheduling yourself properly. And if you don't know how to do that, then, your PI definitely does. And so, just share that with them and always, keep them updated on making sure that you're on the right track. But yeah, definitely take time for yourself.
Yeah, to build on that as well, communicating with your mentor or even with your parents or roommates is and with yourself as well is a big deal. Communicating with yourself in the sense of a planner, even if it's just like I write down my day on a piece of printer paper and I just break it down in blocks. And communicating as well with your parents or your professor or your roommates is a big thing. 'Cause that way you don't feel pressured to, if let's say you have to clean house or if you have to take out the trash or something like that. It's just it's just better knowing that they know what your workload is, so that way you don't feel pressured to do it right away. And yeah, same thing with your mentor. Just communicate with them what you're working on, and just having that knowledge that other people know what you're doing and that you're doing it is a big help for me.
For me, I was implemented in the exercise physiology course, so it was easier for me to maintain the two because it just felt like a little bit extra added onto the class. But I did have a group I was working with, so I had to adjust to their schedules. To complete the project, I had to take the lead to confirm like what tasks, who was going to do what. So I found it manageable. And we had tasks like week after week that was due, so that kept it consistent and nothing was like able to be done the last minute. So that was kind of helpful. I really just think communication and a good planner. I do the same thing. I have a planner that I get from Target every year and it's been working for me like great.
I'm a really big fan of lists, so to-do lists. If you don't have a planner, if you don't have a passion planner, I just get like a regular piece of paper and make a list. It feels empowering to cross something out when you accomplish it. Because of this, I was able to balance internships, work, and school in 3 labs that I'm in. As for the work life balance, balance is a big part of it. I was taught in the honors program to prioritize your GPA and also your research. And then after that, anything else. Your GPA is important because it's going to get you, to graduate school. Your grades are always going to be important, and then your research is what is going to give you that letter of recommendation. That's something to keep in mind when if you're a student and if you're also working. Um, we need money. I understand that we need money. But when you graduate with your bachelor's, and then you go to graduate school and then a PhD program, you're probably going to be making more than you do now. So that's something to maybe keep in mind and maybe make that as a motivator to earning good grades and also conducting research.
Thank you guys. You guys gave some like really great advice. And before I state the other question, I just love that you guys all use planners because I've been using a planner since I was in middle school. So that's really just great to hear as well. But the next question we have is, what do you do in the lab, like in your labs, like as in everyday tasks?
So I can go first. So Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the lab is currently on hiatus. We usually meet in a certain room and we do like projects together. But since that's happened, it kind of just went hiatus. And my mentor, Dr. Marguerite, just said, let's just take a pause and hopefully we can regroup when everything calms down. But before COVID-19, pre-COVID, I helped with writing the literature reviews for PSYOP conference submissions when we would do group lab papers together. I helped assist in data collection for nonprofits that needed that assistance with certain surveys or projects that they did. So for instance, we helped with data collection for the Community Action Partnership of San Bernardino for one of their surveys that they gave out to citizens of San Bernardino County that use the Community Action Partnership as a resource. And lastly, we assist with editing surveys, questionnaires, and measures for nonprofit organizations such as Catholic Charities, who is a very prominent nonprofit here in the Inland Empire, where they provide a survey and they collect data from the citizens that utilize Catholic Charities and also promote these surveys and questionnaires when they have their poverty simulations, which they used to do pre-COVID. So that's what I usually did every day per se in the lab.
Yeah, so my lab is a little bit different because I work with virtual reality, so that's my main thing. Pre-PANI, right? We would have like faculty come in who wanted to take like these ideas or concepts into like a virtual space, right? So we would do that. But since we're in the pandemic now, what we do is that I work with ATI, which is Academic Technologies and Innovation. And what we do is that we essentially take faculty's ideas and try to implement them in the most safest way possible, where we can have a virtual space, but still complete these particular ideas, right? And so what my job was to give the literature on virtual reality, right? Because I'm one of the like few students on campus that are actually working with virtual reality. And so that's kind of like my thing. And so what I do is that I would construct survey, questionnaire, right? Particular measures or mechanisms that would be able to really break down their sense of what they're trying to figure out, right? If it's a embodiment, immersion, if it's trying to understand like student retention, these are particular measures in which like I did the research on to construct so that they're able to get data and figure out whether or not students are learning within their particular environment or not. So even though we are in a pandemic, our lab has kind of been brought home. So it just depends on how you adjust.
I can go next. So what I do is, like I said, I'm working in Dr. Utner's lab at Loma Linda, and we study ovarian cancer. So the problem with ovarian cancer is about 2/3 of the population that get ovarian cancer after treatment will have secondary metastasis, and that's bad, right? So we're trying to figure out the mechanisms behind after radiation. Literature has shown that ovarian cancer cells become more aggressive. And when I say aggressive, I mean more chemo-resistant, more metastatic, more proliferative, and more migratory. And so there's two main things that are thought to contribute to this aggressiveness. One of them is being cancer stem cells. When people are treated for ovarian cancer, they they either go through tumor debulking, which is surgery, or chemotherapy and radiation. And so most of the tumor is going to die, but the tumor is a heterogeneous population, and so there's a bunch of different kinds of cells in the tumor. There's blood vessel cells, there's cancer stem cells. There's tumor initiating cells. So there's like a bunch of different cells in a tumor. And so most of them are going to die, but cancer stem cells and tumor initiating cells, they're going to hang around. And so it's thought that cancer stem cells are what contribute to this aggressiveness because they have the ability to repopulate the tumor. And so the second one is called epithelial to mesenchymal transition. So an epithelial cell is another cell that primarily makes up the tumor. And so it has the ability to reprogram itself and turn into a mesenchymal cell. And the mesenchymal cell has the ability to go float around the bloodstream, attach to a secondary organ, for simplicity's sake, say the liver. It's going to attach to the liver. It's going to go through the reverse process, and then it's going to be able to form another tumor. And so that's kind of how cancer progression works. And so we're trying to, literature has shown that as this transition occurs, these cells become more aggressive, more chemo resistant. And so we're trying to, manipulate this transition to figure out if we can resensitize, ovarian cancer to these therapies. And so on a daily basis, from day to day, it changes, but typically I come in, I'll get here at 7. And right now I'm actually studying for the DAT. So I'll study for a few hours and then go into my research and, culturing cells. There's definitely lab meetings. And so you're constantly updating your PI with what you have going on, taking the initiative to tell them. They're not going to remind you, you need to remind them. And so, just every day is different, but be willing to adapt and persevere on and just being willing to put in the time in order to get everything done. And it comes a feeling of accomplishment when you check things off a checklist, and at the end of the day, you're like, wow, I killed it today and I did everything I could. But there also is a lot of days that you're like, what am I doing wrong? And so just be willing to get through those days, and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
I don't work in in a lab, but my labs are currently online, as far as, because I do a lot of research into archives right now. I'm cataloging census data of San Bernardino County from 1850 to 1890, and I just find it helpful when I'm going into these sort of labs, um, as far as my research goes, to sort of make a checklist, and like Aaron had said earlier, just go and give it 200% and try and get as much as you can done, and keep your mentor updated on the things that you find, and meet with your mentor weekly, and and sort of just try and double check your work and make sure that everything's good. And yeah.
I'm a part of 3 labs. For one of my labs, it's on mother's perceptions on sibling conflict, and another one of my labs, it's on school psychologists and what specific assessments and intervention practices that they have been using. And then the last one is for infant feeding styles in first-time mothers during the COVID-19 pandemic. I love all my labs. For 2 of the labs, it's more independent work. It's more of my style, that I like doing things on my own and looking at databases and conducting, like, building the survey and sending that out. It's more independent. And then the other lab that I'm in, it's more hands-on. We're able to do screening calls, recruitment. We call places to get participants for our study. And we also send reminders and screening calls. I think I said that. So if you are interested in research, get in touch with a faculty mentor and see what type of research that they're doing, and if that correlates with like your type of research. If you're more of an independent learner or a hands-on team building student, then I recommend that.
For me, I was conducting my research in a virtual setting, so unfortunately I didn't work in a physical laboratory. So our study was done online and we promoted it to our peers, families, friends. With the help of my professor, Dr. Dunn, I was able to have the participants complete a Qualtrics survey, and the survey provided me with the means of electronically collecting my human subjects data. And since our course was remote, this kind of made it like a limitation, but honestly, it was the best given the circumstances of the pandemic going on.
I actually worked on that virtual tour for Dr. Dunn. I helped construct it.
That's awesome. She's amazing.
All right, thanks everyone. So last question, very briefly, if everyone can just go around like one sentence, just say what's the toughest challenge for you as you've become more involved in research?
Taking a break. Being able to stop and be like, I need to step back, right? That's the hardest part.
I'm gonna second that, Shane. Yours and Aaron's thing about taking a break, that's something I used to do, and then I didn't do it so well during my first year of graduate school. I had a hard time like making time for myself because I was always getting assignments. It was a really, our program is like top 5 according to SciUp and top 10 in curriculum, so it's a pretty intense program, and it was just finding that time to, whether it's walking on the treadmill or exercising or doing a face mask or meditating or just listening to your favorite podcast. It was just really hard to make time for myself because no, I still have all these stuff to do. But I love that advice and what I'm trying to do now, especially with the pandemic and staying home and everything kind of calming down, is making that time, whether it's throughout the week or on a specific day. Like for me, like I have self-care Sundays, that's what I call them for myself. And that could be either putting on a face mask or listening to a podcast or taking a nap. Don't really take naps, but if you want to do that, naps are good for people too. So yeah, that was one of my toughest challenges during my first year of graduate school and during the last years of my undergrad.
My toughest challenge was learning to say no. I like being on top of things and getting myself into a lot of work. So it was hard for me to say no to things, but like over time, in my last years of undergraduate years, I've learned to say no, and it's really relieving.
Yeah, I would also say learning to say no has been the toughest challenge.
Yeah, I would say that learning to take a break is a big one. When you get involved in research, you might not initially be super interested in it just because of the fact you don't know much about it. And so the more you do it, you start to gain this passion and this kind of personal relationship with your research, almost as if it's like an entity. And so you want to just continue on and push forward, especially when your week is full of failures, and you're like, man, I just want to come in on Saturday and I just want to iron things out and make things right. Know that that's not going to get you anywhere, and you need to rejuvenate. You need to recalibrate your mind and take time for yourself. And so yeah, I battle with that, and just being able to detach away from your research is pretty challenging.
I think for me, I'm between like the two of time management and communication. I don't know how many of you guys worked like in group settings where you have to work with a lot of people. And for me, it was really hard to get everyone's schedules. I think like at one point we met like at 10 p.m. and it just worked for everyone. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things about everything.
All right, I think that concludes all of our questions. Thank you so much to all of our student panelists for giving such great detail and advice to all students interested in joining research. To all of our attendees, thank you so much for joining and spending this time with us. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email us at coyotescholars.csusb@gmail.com. I put that in the chat. We can direct your questions to any specific panelist if you want. All right, thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.